Tonight, we leave behind the familiar and journey to a city of marble and whispers, of towering gods and deeply human desires. We are bound for ancient Rome, a place where an empire was run, and where reputations were made and destroyed in the space of a single, breathless rumor. Forget the sanitized version you see in films. We are headed for the real city, the beating, chaotic, and beautiful heart of the world. So, before you get comfortable, take just a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Let me know in the comments where in the world you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights, perhaps turn on a fan for that soft ambient hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The dust of the long road, the Via Appia, still clings to your cloak. It settles in the creases of your travel-worn tunic, a fine pale powder that speaks of miles and days spent journeying toward this one, singular destination. For your entire life, you have heard of Rome. It was a word spoken with reverence, a name that tasted of power and destiny. But no story, no traveller's tale, could have prepared you for the reality of it. The carriage you have ridden in for the final leg of your journey now slows, caught in a press of people and noise that is unlike anything you have ever known. You lean forward, peering through the small curtained window, and your breath catches in your throat. Before you, the city rises not just as a collection of buildings, but as a declaration of dominance over the very earth itself. Giant aqueducts, like the skeletons of slumbering stone beasts, march across the horizon, their impossible arches carrying the lifeblood of the city, clean water, from the distant hills. Temples gleam, their rooftops tiled in bronze that catches the afternoon sun, sending brilliant flashes of light into your eyes. You see columns thick as ancient trees, marble facades carved with stories of gods and heroes. And everywhere, there are people. A river of humanity flows through the streets, soldiers in their segmented armor, their leather sandals slapping against the paving stones, senators carried aloft in curtained litters or lecticarii by sweating slaves, merchants shouting the prices of their wares, from fragrant spices to vibrant silks, and women of every class, some with their heads modestly covered, others with intricate hairstyles held in place by pins of ivory and silver. It is a symphony of chaos, and you are but a single, silent note within it. Your guide, a distant cousin of your father, who has made a modest life for himself as a clerk, points a thick finger toward a great hill that seems to command the entire city. It is covered in sprawling, magnificent buildings that seem to climb over one another to get closer to the sky. The Palatine, he says, his voice a low rumble against the city's din. Home of the powerful, home of the divine Augustus, and now, home of Caesar. He uses the word Caesar not as a name, but as a title, one that hangs in the air with immeasurable weight. This is the center of the world, the heart from which all the veins and arteries of the empire pulse. It is where your new life is supposed to begin, in service to a powerful senator whose household has agreed to take you on. A favor to your family, a chance for you to make your way. As your carriage finally lurches through a great archway into the city proper, the sounds and smells intensify. The sharp tang of olives, the comforting scent of baking bread from a corner pistrinum, the less pleasant aroma of the crowded tenements, and underneath it all, the sweet, cloying smell of incense smoke drifting from 1,000 small household shrines. Your cousin sees the look of wonder and apprehension on your face and gives a small, knowing smile. It is much to take in, he admits. Rome is a beast. You must learn how to walk beside it, never against it. He explains the custom of the salutatio, the morning greeting, a ritual that you will soon come to know intimately. Each morning, clients like you will gather at the home of your patron, the senator, to pay your respects, to be seen, and perhaps to ask for a favor or receive a duty for the day. It is the fundamental grammar of Roman society, a complex web of obligation and patronage. Not exactly a friendly morning chat over coffee, but a vital performance of loyalty. You are here to serve, and in return, you are granted protection. It is a bargain that underpins everything. You are guided through narrower streets now, away from the grand forums and into a quieter, though no less imposing, residential district. The homes here, the domus, are hidden behind high windowless walls. The noise of the city fades, replaced by a sense of guarded privacy. It is behind these walls you realize that the real business of Rome is conducted. You pass a pair of men, dressed in fine wool, speaking in low, urgent tones. They do not notice you, so engrossed are they in their conversation. You catch only fragments of their words, carried on the warm air. An indulgence too far this time, one of them murmurs, shaking his head. The other scoffs. She has the emperor's ear and his heart for now. As long as she gives him airs, her appetites are tolerated. The first man glances around nervously, as if the very stones might be listening. But to dismiss the finest general we have over a trifle, and to replace him with one of her own favourites. The army will not forget it, the Senate whispers. Let them whisper, the second man says with a cynical laugh. Their whispers are meaningless. All that matters is what happens on the Palatine. And on the Palatine, the Empress Messalina rules. The name falls into the quiet air of the street, and it sounds different from the names of gods or heroes you saw carved on the temples. It is a soft name, a woman's name, yet they spoke it with a strange mixture of fear and fascination. Messalina, the Empress. You file the name away, a beautiful, dangerous-sounding piece of a puzzle you have only just begun to assemble. You have heard of the Emperor Claudius. He is a remote, almost mythical figure, an aging scholar who, by a twist of fate, now rules the world. But this name, Messalina, feels closer, more immediate, more human. It is spoken in the present tense. Your cousin ushers you toward a large, imposing wooden door, the entrance to your new home and new life. As he raises his hand to knock, you take one last look back down the street, as if expecting to see the very whispers you just overheard, but there is nothing, only the long shadows of late afternoon stretching across the cobblestones. You think of the senator you are about to meet, of the duties you will have to perform, of the complex rules of this new world you must learn to survive. And yet, it is that one name that echoes in your mind, a name spoken in a conspiratorial hush. One can only imagine the kind of power a woman must hold for her name to be the final word in an argument between powerful men. Weeks turn into a month, and the rhythm of your new life becomes a familiar, steady beat beneath the clamour of the city. Life in the household of Senator Valerius is an education in itself. You learn the language of silence, the importance of being invisible until you are summoned. Your mornings begin before dawn, joining the quiet procession of other clients and household members in the grand atrium for the salutatio. You stand by a potted laurel tree, watching as your patron, the senator, a man with a perpetually weary face and eyes that see everything, receives his visitors. He dispenses coins, advice, and tasks with an air of practiced authority. You learn that in Rome, favour is a currency more valuable than gold, and loyalty is a shield. It's a world of carefully chosen words and even more carefully guarded thoughts. You perform your duties, copying letters, organizing scrolls, running errands to the forum, with a quiet diligence that earns you a nod of approval from the senator's chief steward. A small victory, but in this city, you take what you can get. The whispers you overheard on your first day have not ceased. If anything, they have grown more frequent, more insistent. The name Messalina is a constant, humming undercurrent in the conversations of the powerful men who visit the domus. They speak of her influence, her appointments, her whims. They speak of her beauty with a tone that borders on reverence, and of her ambition with a tone that borders on fear. The scandalous stories are there too, of course, traded like forbidden sweets in the shadowed porticos of the courtyard. You listen, as you have learned to do, without ever appearing to listen. The empress you have constructed in your mind is a formidable creature, a master manipulator with the face of a goddess and a heart of cold marble. Then comes a day of grand ceremony. A triumph is not being celebrated, but a new temple is being consecrated, an act of public piety that requires the presence of the entire imperial family. The city is electric. Garlands of flowers are strung between buildings, and the air is thick with the scent of bay leaves and roasting meat from street-side stalls. Senator Valerius is to be part of the official procession, and in a surprising gesture, you and a few other junior members of his household are tasked with accompanying his litter, a position that grants you an unparalleled view of the proceedings. You dress in your finest tunic, the wool freshly cleaned and pressed, feeling a nervous flutter in your stomach. Today, the name will become a face. You stand along the edge of the Via Sacra, the sacred road, the very stones beneath your feet worn smooth by centuries of history. The crowds are immense, held back by stern-faced legionaries. The mood is festive, but beneath it, you feel that uniquely Roman tension, a mix of celebratory fervour and deep, abiding awe for the power on display. You hear the distant blast of a horn, and a ripple of excitement passes through the crowd. First come the lictors, the ceremonial bodyguards, their faces impassive, carrying the fasces, the bundles of rods and axes that symbolize the state's power to punish. Then come the priests, their white robes stark against the sun-bleached stone, swinging censers that release clouds of fragrant smoke. Senators follow, a sea of white togas with proud purple stripes, Valerius among them. They all walk with a practiced dignitas, a sense of their own importance, yet you can't help but smile faintly at how they all crane their necks like eager schoolboys for a glimpse of who is to follow. And then you see them, the imperial litter, carried on the shoulders of 8 towering German slaves, is a masterpiece of ivory and gold, its silk curtains the colour of a deep sunset. It moves with a gentle hypnotic sway. Flanking it are Praetorian guards, their helmets and breastplates polished to a mirror shine, their purple plumes bobbing in unison. As the litter draws level with your position, the curtains are drawn aside, and you see him first, the Emperor Claudius. He looks older than you imagined, his face lined with the concerns of his office, a slight tremor in his hand as he raises it to acknowledge the cheering crowd. He is a man who seems more suited to a library than to this grand public stage, yet there is an undeniable authority in his gaze. Beside him, however, is the reason the crowds cheer crescendos. There sits the Empress Valeria Messalina, and the first thought that strikes you, a thought so powerful it almost makes you gasp, is, she is so young. All the stories, all the whispers of a calculating, hardened political operator dissolve in an instant. The woman before you cannot be more than 20 years of age, if that. Her skin is like cream, her dark hair coiled in an elaborate style that must have taken hours to perfect. adorned with pearls that catch the light. She is breathtakingly beautiful. That much is true. But it is not the cold, intimidating beauty of a statue. It is the vibrant, restless beauty of a blooming flower. As she smiles at the crowd, a perfect practiced smile, you notice something else. For a fleeting moment, as her eyes sweep over the sea of faces, the smile falters. It is replaced by a flicker of, what? Boredom? Sadness? An aching loneliness? It is there for only a heartbeat, a tiny crack in the flawless imperial facade. But you see it. She holds their young son, Britannicus, on her lap, a small, serious-looking boy, clutching a wooden toy soldier. She points something out to him, her expression softening into one of genuine maternal affection. In that moment, she is not the terrifying Empress of rumour, but a young mother. You are struck by the immense chasm between her and her husband. He is nearly 50, a scholar who inherited an empire he never expected. She is a girl who was married to that empire, tasked with the solemn duty of providing heirs and projecting an image of stable domestic bliss. A heavy burden for shoulders so young. You recall that this is her purpose, the source of her power and her peril. Her dignitas is tied completely to this role as wife and mother to the imperial line. The procession begins to move on, the golden litter swaying past you. Her eyes, dark and intelligent, briefly meet yours. It is not a meaningful glance, not a moment of connection. You are just one more face in an endless crowd. But you feel it nonetheless. A jolt, a sense of having seen something true beneath the performance. The image of her is burned into your mind. The pearls in her hair, the weary weight in her husband's eyes, and that fleeting, fragile humanity you saw in her own. You now understand that the stories they tell about her might all be true, but they are incomplete. They speak of her actions, but not of the reasons. And as you watch the procession recede toward the gleaming new temple, you realize that the most dangerous cages are not made of iron, but of gold. The image of the young empress in the golden litter stays with you. It has become a quiet counterpoint to the city's noise, a fixed point in the swirling world of Roman politics you now inhabit. In the senator's domus, your diligence has not gone unnoticed. You are no longer just the provincial cousin. You are a trusted junior scribe. This promotion is less about a change in title and more about a change in geography. You are now granted access to the inner parts of the household, the spaces beyond the public-facing atrium and tablinum, the senator's formal office. You spend your afternoons in a small, sunlit room overlooking the peristyle garden, a tranquil oasis of fountains, frescoes, and fragrant jasmine. It is here, in the heart of the home, that the true currents of the house are felt. This is the domain of the senator's wife, Domitia Lepida, a woman of formidable presence and a cousin to the empress herself. While the senator deals with the affairs of the state in the front of the house, it is Domitia who manages this complex domestic world. And you learn quickly that the hierarchy of a Roman household is as intricate as that of the Senate. The slaves who serve the domina directly, her handmaidens, her hairdresser, her personal scribe, occupy the highest rung of this private ladder. They are the keepers of secrets, the bearers of news that travels not through official channels, but on hushed breaths from one powerful house to another. It is through them, through the fragments of conversation you overhear while mixing ink or sharpening reeds, that you begin to learn the truth behind Messalina's gilded cage. One afternoon, you are seated near the garden, meticulously copying a list of household expenses. The air is warm and still, filled with the gentle splashing of the fountain and the drowsy hum of bees. Domitia is having her hair done by a Greek slave named Ilara, a woman known for her skill and her discretion. Another handmaiden, Chloe, is mending a fine silk shawl. Their voices are low, a soft murmur, but the acoustics of the portico carry their words to you. The master is worried, Chloe says, her needle pausing for a moment. The emperor is consumed with his new aqueduct project. He spends more time with engineers and blueprints than with the empress. Elara, her fingers deftly weaving a braid, makes a soft, sympathetic sound. She is young. The palace must feel like a tomb. All those old men talking of laws and Britain. And that man, Narcissus, he watches her like a hawk. The name Narcissus is spoken with a distinct chill. You know of him, a former slave, a freedman, now Claudius's chief secretary, and one of the most powerful men in Rome. He is the emperor's shadow, his gatekeeper, a man whose power is entirely dependent on the emperor's favour, making him a natural rival to anyone else who holds it. The idea of this cold, calculating man observing the vibrant young empress makes you shiver despite the heat. Narcissus whispers poison in the emperor's ear, Chloe continues, lowering her voice even further. He says she is frivolous, that her expenses are too great. He questions every friend she makes. She leans in closer to Domitia. They say she weeps from loneliness. The emperor, he is her husband and her Caesar, but he is not her companion. He respects her as the mother of his heir, but he does not share her heart. A modern therapist might call it a profound emotional disconnect. In Rome, it was simply the accepted reality of a political marriage. But acceptance does not preclude suffering. Domitia sighs, a sound of deep, familial weariness. She was always a girl who craved laughter. She needs music, poetry, life around her, not dust and ledgers. She shifts under Elara's hands. Tell me of this new man, the one they speak of, the one who makes her laugh. There is a moment of hesitation. This is deeper, more dangerous territory. Senator Silius, Elara says quietly. Gaius Silius. He is handsome, they say, the most handsome man in Rome, and charming. He writes verses for her. He doesn't speak to her of grain shortages or provincial disputes. He speaks of beauty. You hold your breath, your pen frozen above the wax tablet. Gaius Silius. Another name to add to the constellation forming around the Empress. This one feels different. It is not spoken with fear, like the name Narcissus, but with a hint of romantic glamour, of thrilling risk. You can almost picture it. The lonely girl in the marble palace, the scholarly, distracted husband, and the arrival of a handsome poet who sees her, not just the Empress. It is a story as old as time. But when the setting is the Palatine Hill, the stakes are impossibly high. Domitia makes a non-committal sound, a warning that the topic is closed. The conversation shifts to the price of Egyptian cotton and the planning of an upcoming dinner party. But the seed has been planted. The whispers have given you a story, a narrative for the loneliness you saw in Messalina's eyes. Her scandalous reputation is not perhaps born of malice or pure decadence, but of a desperate human thirst for connection, for a life she is denied. One can only imagine how it must feel to be the most revered woman in the world, yet have no one to truly talk to. Later that week, you see a small example of her influence yourself. Domitia, in a moment of vanity, instructs Elara to try and replicate one of Messalina's famously complex hairstyles. The attempt involves a mountain of pins, a small pot of setting lotion, and a great deal of frustrated sighing, resulting in a slightly lopsided creation that looks more like a bird's nest than an imperial coiffure. Domitia dismisses it with an irritated wave, but you can't help a small, hidden smile. Even in this, Messalina sets the standard. Her power isn't just political, it's cultural. She is the sun around which all the ladies of Rome orbit, whether they admit it or not. You finish your work as dusk begins to settle, painting the garden in shades of purple and gold. The household quiets, the slaves moving silently to light the oil lamps that will ward off the night. You look at the neat columns of figures on your tablet, a record of the mundane reality of this great house. But your mind is elsewhere, on the Palatine, in the silent, echoing halls, where an empress might be staring out at the same descending twilight. And you begin to understand that the loudest screams in the palace are often completely silent. The quiet life of a scribe, with its predictable rhythms of ink and parchment, is a comfort. You have found your place within the senator's household, a small, safe harbour in the vast and treacherous ocean of Rome. Your patron's wife, Domitia Lepida, has taken a particular liking to your quiet efficiency. You are often tasked with organising her personal correspondence or reading to her from scrolls of poetry when the afternoons grow long and heavy with heat. It is in this capacity, sitting in the shade of the peristyle garden, that you are drawn another step deeper into the city's heart. One morning, Domitia calls you to her private chambers. The room is filled with the scent of lilies and expensive Egyptian perfume. She is sealing a small, intricately carved wooden box with a ribbon of purple silk. Beside it on the table lies a set of pugilares, small wooden tablets hinged together, their inner surfaces coated with a smooth layer of blackened beeswax. This is the common method for sending notes, a reusable and private medium. Once the message was written with a stylus, the tablets would be folded shut and bound with a cord, the knot sealed with a dollop of warm wax, stamped with a personal signet ring. To break that seal was a serious violation of trust. "I have a task for you," Domitia says, her voice casual, but her eyes are sharp, appraising. "This is a gift and a note for a dear friend, the Lady Gaius Silius. Her domus is on the Quirinal Hill. You know the way?" You nod, your heart giving a small flutter. To be entrusted with a personal delivery by the domina herself is a significant sign of favour. It's a task usually reserved for a more senior and long-serving slave. "It is a delicate matter," she adds, and the casual tone vanishes completely. "Give it directly into her hands and no one else's. Do you understand?" You nod again, more seriously this time. The unspoken part of the command is clear. Be swift, be discreet, be invisible. This was the nature of such errands. Not exactly assigned for delivery with tracking, you think, with a flicker of a smile, but the personal responsibility was infinitely greater. You take the small box and the sealed tablets. The tablets feel cool and heavy in your hand, the wax seal bearing Domitia's family crest still slightly warm. You place them carefully in a leather satchel and set off. The journey takes you back out into the bustling city. You navigate the crowded streets, your senses on high alert. You are no longer just an anonymous face in the crowd. You are a messenger, a carrier of secrets, and the weight of that responsibility makes you feel both important and intensely vulnerable. You pass by the forum, resisting the urge to stop and listen to the orators, and begin the steady climb up the Quirinal Hill, a wealthy district known for its sprawling gardens and serene temples. It happens in an instant. A stray dog, chased by a shouting shopkeeper, darts out from an alleyway directly into your path. You stumble, trying to avoid it, your sandal catching on an uneven flagstone. You lurch forward, windmilling your arms for balance, but it's no use. You go down, your satchel tumbling from your grasp and spilling its contents onto the stone street. Your first thought is for the gift, the small wooden box. You scramble to pick it up, relieved to see it's undamaged. But then your blood runs cold. The wax tablets have fallen hard, and the impact has cracked the brittle seal of Domitia's ring. The cord has loosened, and the top tablet has fallen partially open. For a terrifying moment, you freeze. Passers-by throw you annoyed glances before continuing on their way, accustomed to such minor street dramas. Your mind races. To deliver a message with a broken seal is unthinkable. It would imply that you had tampered with it, that you had read it. It would be a catastrophic breach of the trust Domitia has placed in you. And yet, what choice do you have? You quickly gather the tablets, your hands trembling. Your only option is to try and press the seal back together, to refasten the cord, and hope the damage is not too obvious. As you align the wooden leaves, your eyes inevitably fall upon the message inscribed in the dark wax. It is not your intention to read it, but you cannot help but see the words, elegantly carved by Domitia's own hand. The message is short. It is not a gossipy letter between friends. It says, "The nightingale you heard in the western gardens sings again tonight. The pearls were admired by all, but the giver is missed more. Be patient. The eagle must fly from the nest before the doves can meet." The words mean nothing and everything. A nightingale in a garden, pearls, an eagle and doves. It is poetry, a riddle, a code. But you understand. You remember the whispers in the garden of your own domus, the pearls Messalina wore in the procession, the handsome poet, Gaius Silius, who makes the Empress laugh. The Lady Junia Silana, the recipient of this note, you know from the endless talk of genealogies among the Roman elite that she is his mother. The eagle must be the Emperor Claudius, and the doves could only be the Empress and her admirer. Domitia, the Empress's cousin, is acting as a go-between. This small wax tablet in your hand is a piece of a dangerous, clandestine love affair. With fumbling fingers, you pull the cord tight and press the two halves of the broken wax seal together. It holds, but the crack is visible if one looks closely. Your heart is pounding against your ribs like a trapped bird. This is no longer just a story you overhear. You are now holding the physical evidence of it. You are a link in the chain. You continue your journey, the satchel feeling 100 times heavier than before. When you arrive at the imposing door of the Silius Domus and ask for the Lady Junia, you are terrified she will notice the damaged seal. She is an older woman with sharp, intelligent eyes that seem to see right through you. She takes the gift and the tablets without a word, her expression unreadable. She does not inspect the seal. Or if she does, she gives no sign. She simply gives you a curt nod of dismissal. The walk back to Senator Valerius's house is a blur. Every shadow seems to hold a threat. Every pair of guardsmen feels like an accusation. You have flown too close to the sun, and you can feel the heat on your wings. When you return, Domitia asks you if the delivery was made. You simply say, "Yes, Domina," your voice steady, betraying none of the terror you feel. She seems satisfied and turns back to her embroidery. The secret is safe for now, but it lives inside you, a burning coal. And you learn that the heaviest things you will ever have to carry are the words you were never meant to read. The secret you carry is a constant, quiet companion. It has changed the way you move through the world. You are more watchful now, more attuned to the subtle currents of meaning that flow beneath the surface of daily life in the Senator's Domus. You see the way Domitia's eyes linger on a messenger from the palace, the slight hesitation before she breaks the seal on a new set of tablets. You have become a student of secrets, and your own silence has become your shield. Your unwitting success in delivering the broken sealed message has, ironically, solidified Domitia's trust in you. She believes you to be discreet and incurious, the two most valuable traits in a subordinate. It's a small, private irony that makes you want to smile, but you never do. A few weeks later, this misplaced trust leads to another, more significant errand. Domitia is a passionate collector of rare plants, and she has procured a cutting from a flowering shrub native to Greece. She wants it delivered not to a fellow noblewoman, but to the head gardener of the magnificent gardens of Lucullus, a man renowned for his skill. She wants his opinion on how best to cultivate it. The errand is perfectly logical, yet your stomach tightens when you hear the name of the gardens. Since your journey to the Silius Domus, you have done some quiet research in the senator's library. The gardens of Lucullus, once the property of a famously wealthy general, now belong to the Empress Messalina herself. It is her private sanctuary, her escape from the stone and ceremony of the Palatine Hill. You accept the task, of course, your face a mask of placid obedience. You wrap the precious cutting in damp moss and set out once more. The gardens are located on the Pincian Hill, overlooking the city, and as you approach, you understand why they are the subject of so much poetry and envy. A high stone wall protects them from the outside world, but even from the gate, you can smell the perfume of jasmine and rose, and hear the distant musical sound of falling water. You are admitted by a guard and given directions to the greenhouses where the head gardener works. The moment you step inside, the city of Rome ceases to exist. You are in another world entirely. This is not a simple garden. It is a sprawling landscape of man-made perfection. You walk along pathways of crushed white seashells that crunch softly under your sandals. You pass beneath shaded pergolas, heavy with grapevines, through colonnades of marble pillars that frame stunning views of the city below. Statues of gods, nymphs, and heroes are placed with artistic precision, some half hidden in alcoves of dark green cypress, others standing proudly in the center of reflecting pools. The air is alive with the gentle murmur of fountains and the song of birds you cannot see. It is a place designed for peace, for contemplation, for escape. Following the winding path, you realize you have taken a wrong turn. The directions were simple, yet the garden's beauty is a deliberate distraction. Each turn presents a new vista, a new temptation to wander. You find yourself in a more secluded area, a western garden, as your memory helpfully supplies, a phrase that makes the hairs on your arm stand up. This part is wilder, the planting more naturalistic. A small stream gurgles over mossy stones, feeding into a grotto shaded by an ancient fig tree. It is here, drawn by the sound of low voices, that you stop. You instinctively pull back behind the thick foliage of a laurel hedge, your heart beginning to beat a slow, heavy rhythm against your ribs. Through the screen of glossy green leaves you see them. It is the Empress Messalina and the Senator Gaius Silius. They are not surrounded by guards or servants. They are alone, and they are transformed from the public figures you know. Messalina is not wearing the heavy pearls or the stiff, formal robes of state. She is dressed in a simple, elegant stola of pale blue that moves with the breeze. Her intricate hairstyle has been loosened, soft tendrils framing her face. She is not the empress. She is a young woman. Silius stands before her, and he too is dressed simply. The most handsome man in Rome is not an exaggeration, but it is the look on his face as he gazes at her that silences every rumour you have ever heard. It is not the look of a flatterer or a political opportunist. It is pure, unvarnished adoration. He is holding her hand. You see him lift it to his lips, his gesture full of a gentle reverence that seems more intimate than any passionate embrace. And she is smiling. Not the practiced, fleeting smile of the imperial procession, but a genuine, radiant smile that lights up her entire face. It is a smile of pure happiness. You are too far away to hear all of their words, but snippets drift towards you on the gentle air. Here, with you, I can breathe, you hear her say, her voice soft. On the Palatine, even the air is heavy with judgment. Then we must find more reasons to be here, he replies, his voice a low, soothing murmur. He says something that makes her laugh, a light, carefree sound that echoes strangely in this hidden, silent place. It is the sound of a heart set free, if only for a moment. You see her trace the line of his jaw with her finger, a gesture of familiar tenderness that speaks volumes. This is not a sordid arrangement. This is not a political maneuver. You are witnessing something far more dangerous, far more profound, a genuine connection. You are seeing the desperation that drives them, her desperation to feel like a person rather than a symbol, and his to be with the woman he so clearly loves, despite the impossible risk. A twig snaps under your foot. They both freeze, their heads turning in your direction. The light and laughter vanish from Messalina's face, replaced instantly by the cold, guarded mask of the Empress. Silius moves to stand slightly in front of her, a protective stance. You shrink back, your blood turning to ice. You have seen what you were never meant to see. You stay perfectly still for what feels like an eternity, listening. After a moment, hearing nothing more, they seem to relax, their conversation resuming in much lower, inaudible tones. You retreat, your steps silent and careful, your mind reeling. You find your way to the greenhouses, deliver the cutting with a shaky hand, and leave the gardens as quickly as you can without drawing attention. The entire encounter could not have lasted more than a few minutes, but it has changed everything. The whispers, the coded notes, the rumours, they are all true. But the truth is not the ugly scandal the gossips describe. In a world built of marble and power, you had just witnessed something far more fragile and far more real. After what you witnessed in the gardens of Lucullus, Rome looks different to you. The city's marble facades seem thinner, more fragile, like theatrical sets for a grand and dangerous play. The knowledge you hold is a constant weight in your gut. When you hear the gossips in the senator's household whisper about the Empress's latest extravagance or her rumoured cruelty to a rival, you no longer feel a detached curiosity. Instead, a strange, complicated feeling rises in you, part fear, part pity. You know the story behind the story. You have seen the genuine heart that beats beneath the scandalous rumours, and this knowledge isolates you, placing you on a lonely island of truth in an ocean of speculation. You watch Domitia Lepida with new eyes. You see her for what she is. Not just a noblewoman managing her home, but a key player in a perilous game. A loyal cousin facilitating a love affair that could bring down their entire family. You wonder how much the senator knows or suspects. His weary face gives away nothing. The entire city, you realise, runs on these unspoken understandings, these carefully maintained fictions. And no one, you're about to learn, maintains their fiction more masterfully than the Empress herself. The opportunity to see her again comes during the festival of the Ludi Romani, the Roman Games, a multi-day religious event held in honour of Jupiter. It is a time of citywide celebration, of chariot races in the Circus Maximus and grand theatrical performances. But it begins, as all important state functions do, with a solemn religious procession and sacrifice at the temple of Jupiter Optimus Maximus on the Capitoline Hill. Your patron, Senator Valerius plays a prominent role in the ceremony, and once again, you are part of his official retinue, standing amidst the sea of white togas and observing the grand theatre of power. Before the procession begins, the senator is proudly showing a colleague a newly minted aureus, a gold coin fresh from the imperial mint. He passes it to the other man, and you manage to catch a glimpse as it flashes in the sun. On one side is the unmistakable profile of the Emperor Claudius, but it is the reverse that catches your breath. It shows the bust of the Empress Messalina, her hair in a severe, modest style, her expressions serene and pious. Around the image are the words, Pietas Augusta, the piety of the Empress. It's an official declaration, a piece of propaganda struck in pure gold, meant to be circulated to the farthest corners of the empire. This is the woman Rome is meant to see, a symbol of religious devotion and domestic virtue. The image of her laughing in the garden, her hair loosened and her eyes bright with forbidden love, is so violently at odds with this cold metal portrait that it makes you feel dizzy. Then, the trumpets sound and the procession begins. You watch as Messalina takes her place beside Claudius. Today, she is every inch the empress on the coin. She is dressed in the traditional white robes of a Roman matron, a veil covering her hair. Her face is a perfect mask of solemnity. She walks with a slow, measured grace, her eyes fixed forward, acknowledging the cheering crowds with only the slightest, most dignified inclination of her head. This is her role in the supplicatio, the public prayer, to lead the noble women of Rome, to be the living embodiment of female piety for the entire state. Her performance is flawless. There is no trace of the restless young woman from the gardens, no hint of the secret, smiling lover. Then you see him, standing among the other senators, not 20 paces from the imperial family, is Gaius Silius. He too wears a mask, his handsome face set in an expression of appropriate senatorial gravity. He and the Empress are in the same space, surrounded by thousands of people, yet they may as well be on different planets. They do not look at each other. Their every action is dictated by protocol. And yet, knowing what you know, the air between them feels charged with an electric, invisible current. You find yourself watching them both, your gaze flicking from his stoic face to her pious one. You are looking for a sign, a crack in the facade, and then you see it. It is nothing a casual observer would ever notice. As the procession makes a slow turn, for the briefest fraction of a second, their eyes meet. It is not a look of passion or longing. It is something far more subtle and profound. It is a look of shared understanding, of mutual acknowledgement of the roles they are playing. It says, I see you. I see the mask you are wearing, and I am wearing mine for you. The glance lasts no longer than a heartbeat before they both look away, their public expressions snapping back into place. But it is enough. It is a testament to the incredible discipline, the sheer nerve that their double life requires. A few of the other senators' wives try to mimic Messalina's pious gaze, but the effect is more comical than convincing. They lack her talent, her motivation. Her entire world depends on this performance. As she mounts the steps to the temple, she seems to radiate a kind of holy light, the perfect Roman empress. The crowd adores her. They see the image from the coin, the mother of the air, the guarantor of divine favor. You, however, see the truth. A brilliant actress playing the most dangerous role of her life. You see the sheer, terrifying gap between her public duties and her private heart, and you begin to grasp the immense strain she must be under, balancing the weight of an empire's expectations against the weight of her own secret desires. One can only wonder which performance required more courage. the stolen moments of truth in a hidden garden, or the public hours of perfect falsehood on the steps of a temple. Living with the knowledge of the Empress's secret has created a new kind of silence in you. You perform your duties with the same diligence. You listen to the endless political chatter in the atrium with the same impassive expression. But inwardly, you have retreated. You find yourself seeking out the quietest corners of the domus, finding solace away from the whispers and the intrigue. Your favourite refuge becomes the peristyle garden, the very place where you first overheard the name Gaius Silius. In the late afternoons, after the senator and his wife have retired for their siesta, the garden is a haven of tranquility, drowsing in the warm, golden light. You sit on a cool stone bench near the fountain, not reading, not working, just letting the gentle sounds of water and rustling leaves wash over you. It is here that you begin to notice her. Her name is Lyra. She is one of Domitia's personal handmaidens, a Greek slave who was purchased for her education and her quiet demeanour. You have seen her before, of course, a silent figure moving through the household, but you had never truly looked at her. She is young, perhaps your own age, with dark, intelligent eyes, and a way of holding herself with a certain grace that seems at odds with her status. She often comes to the garden in these quiet hours, a papyrus scroll in her hands, and sits where the shade from a fig tree is deepest, her lips moving silently as she reads. Your first real interaction is small, almost meaningless. A sudden gust of wind whips through the colonnade, catching the scroll she has just unrolled and sending it tumbling across the mosaic tiles. You are closer to it, and you rise instinctively, catching the curling edge of the papyrus before it can roll into the fountain. You hand it back to her, and your fingers brush for a moment. Her skin is cool. "Thank you," she says, her voice softer than you expected, with the faint musical accent of her homeland. You simply nod, your throat suddenly feeling tight, and retreat to your bench. But the silence between you is different now. It is no longer an empty space, but a shared one. Over the next few weeks, a quiet routine develops. You both seek out the garden's peace in the afternoon. You do not speak much. Conversation between a freeborn scribe and a high-status slave, outside of official duties, would attract notice. The social chasm between you, while not as vast as that between a commoner and an empress, is a real and dangerous thing to cross. A relationship would be unthinkable, a violation of the strict order of the household. So you communicate in other ways. You might find she has left a single perfect white flower on the bench where you always sit. The next day, you might leave a particularly smooth, dark stone you found, perfect for holding down the edge of a scroll in the place where she reads. It is a silent, gentle courtship, a world away from the high-stakes drama unfolding on the Palatine Hill. Unlike the Empress and her senator, whose every public glance is a political risk calculated to the finest degree, your stolen glances are fleeting and shy. When she looks up from her reading and finds you watching, she gives you a small, tentative smile before looking down again, a faint blush colouring her cheeks. And you feel a warmth spread through your chest, a simple, uncomplicated happiness that feels more real than anything you have experienced in this city of grand facades. One afternoon, you find her not reading, but weeping. Her shoulders shake with silent sobs. You hesitate for only a moment before crossing the space between you and sitting on the bench beside her. You don't touch her, but your presence is a question. After a long moment she speaks, her voice thick with sorrow. She tells you she received word from a travelling merchant that her family in Athens, the family she was stolen from years ago, has fallen on hard times. Her quiet grief, her feeling of utter helplessness, touches you deeply. You don't offer false comfort or easy solutions. You simply sit with her, a silent witness to her pain, until her tears subside. It is a moment of profound connection, a sharing of vulnerability that requires no grand gestures. In that moment, you realize the irony of your situations. You are technically free, a Roman citizen, yet you are bound by a web of ambition and social convention, forced to be cautious and guarded. She is a slave, her body owned by another, yet in her mind, in her love for the poetry she reads and the family she misses, she possesses a freedom of the heart you almost envy. You tell her, your voice low, that you know what it is like to feel alone in a city of millions. She looks at you then, her dark eyes filled with a new understanding, and you know that something has shifted between you permanently. A bond has been forged in that shared moment of sadness. This budding affection is your own secret, a small, precious thing that you guard as fiercely as you guard the knowledge of Messalina's affair. It is a quiet counter-melody to the grand, crashing symphony of imperial intrigue. It is a reminder that even in the shadow of great and powerful people, smaller, more personal stories are always unfolding. And in a city of grand, dangerous loves, you begin to suspect that the most precious affections might be the ones that learn to grow in the quietest of shadows. Your clandestine friendship with Lyra has opened a new sense of perception in you. It is as if your eyes and ears have been retuned to a different frequency, one that operates beneath the loud pronouncements and public declarations of Roman life. Your own need for secrecy, for a language that can exist in silence, has made you an astute observer of others. You begin to see this silent language everywhere, in the subtle shift of a shoulder, the flick of a wrist, the choice of a flower for a lady's hair. It is the language of the powerless, the oppressed, and the clandestine lover. It is a language of survival. Just as the Empress and her lover speak of nightingales and eagles in their coded notes, you and Lyra have developed your own simple, gentle vocabulary. It begins in the garden, your shared sanctuary. When she leaves a single crimson rose petal on your bench, it means she is thinking of you, a silent acknowledgement of your shared connection. When you find a sprig of laurel left in its place the next day, you understand it is a message of caution, a warning that Domitia has been asking questions, or that the household is under some new stress. It is a conversation held over hours and days, using the fragile messengers of the natural world. This new awareness makes you see the grand imperial drama in a new light. You recall the public ceremony where you saw Messalina and Silius exchange that fleeting glance. At the time, you saw it as a singular, momentary crack in their facade. Now you understand it was just one word in a long and continuous conversation. You begin to look for the other words. At a dinner party hosted by your patron, the senator, you watch as Messalina, seated at the place of honor, idly toys with a string of jet-black pearls at her throat. It seems a nervous, meaningless gesture. But later, as the guests are mingling, you see Gaius Silius speaking with another senator. As he makes a point, he taps his finger against a small black stone set in his signet ring. It is a gesture so natural, so fleeting, it is virtually invisible. But you see it. It is a response, a confirmation, a shared secret hidden in plain sight. You learn to read the language of jewelry, a code of wealth and power repurposed for intimacy. A certain emerald brooch worn by the Empress might signal a successful meeting. The absence of a familiar bracelet could mean a plan has been delayed. You watch the noble women of Rome, including your own Domitia Lepida, copying the Empress's choices. blissfully unaware that they are mimicking a secret alphabet. It's a quiet source of amusement for you, watching them declare their loyalty to an empress whose true message they could never comprehend. The most potent vocabulary you discover is in the simple gesture, the choreographed accident. One afternoon in the garden, Lyra is walking ahead of you on the path. As the chief steward of the household rounds a corner, she stumbles slightly, dropping the small wooden stylus she was carrying. It is a graceful, believable misstep. As you bend to retrieve it for her, your hands brush, and she gives you a look that is filled with both a warning to be careful and a quiet, profound affection. The steward sees only a clumsy slave and a helpful scribe. He sees nothing of the real message that has just been passed. Weeks later, you witness a masterful deployment of this same technique on the grandest of stages. The emperor is holding a reception in the staterooms of the Palatine, and your senator is in attendance. You are there in your usual capacity, a silent shadow holding scrolls and wax tablets. The air is thick with incense and the murmur of 100 conversations. Messalina is seated beside Claudius, looking regal and perhaps a little bored by the proceedings. She holds a small, exquisitely embroidered fan. As a particularly dull senator drones on about crop yields in Hispania, the fan slips from her fingers and flutters to the polished marble floor. Instantly, several servants start forward, but they are too slow. Gaius Silius, positioned nearby as if by chance, steps forward with an easy grace, stoops, and retrieves the fan. He presents it to her with a low, respectful bow. "Your fan, Augusta," he says, his voice formal and correct. "Thank you, Senator," she replies, her voice cool and distant. Their fingers touch for the barest of moments as she takes it from him. To the room, it is an unremarkable moment of chivalry, but you see it for what it is. It is a prearranged meeting, a stolen touch, a message of reassurance, delivered under the watchful eye of the entire Roman court, including her husband. It's a maneuver of such breathtaking audacity that you almost have to smile. One can only imagine what was truly said in that fleeting touch, in that brief meeting of their eyes. You realize that this secret language is the only space where these people can be free. For Messalina and Silius, it is the only way to have a relationship at all. For you and Lyra, it is the only way to build a connection across the gulf of your social stations. It is a fragile, beautiful, and incredibly dangerous art form. And as you stand in the corner of that grand room, an invisible observer, you have learned that in Rome, the most important conversations are held without ever speaking a word. The quiet, secret language you learn to decipher has begun to change. The whispers are growing louder, the gestures bolder. The fragile, hidden love affair between the Empress and the Senator is transforming into something else, something more audacious and far more dangerous. You sense the shift in the very air of the Senator's domus. The conversations between your patron and his visitors are more strained, the silences heavier with unspoken fears. Even the household slaves move with a new tension, their gossip now tinged with genuine alarm rather than titillation. The silent, coded conversation has begun to break into public speech, and its words are treason. The first tremor of the earthquake arrives on a seemingly ordinary afternoon. You are in the library, cataloguing new scrolls for the senator, when you hear a commotion from the direction of Domitia Lepida's chambers. It is the sound of a raised voice, the senator's, a rare and shocking event in this household ruled by discipline and restraint. You freeze, listening. You cannot make out the words, but the tone is one of cold fury. Then you hear Domitia's voice, pleading and distraught. Later, the handmaiden Chloe, her face pale, tells the kitchen staff what she overheard. The news has just broken across the city. Gaius Silius has divorced his wife. In a city where marriages are alliances and family connections are everything, a divorce between two prominent noble houses is a significant event. It is a public severing of ties, a reshuffling of the political deck. But this is no ordinary divorce. Everyone in Rome with eyes to see and ears to hear knows why Silius has done this. He has cast aside his respectable, blue-blooded wife to make himself available, openly and shamelessly, for the Empress. He has moved his pieces from the shadows into the full, unforgiving light of the Roman Forum. This is not the act of a secret lover. It is the act of a consort in waiting. You can only imagine the terror Domitia must feel. She, who acted as the go-between, who carried the coded messages of nightingales and doves, has helped to nurture a quiet romance. But she never intended to assist in a public rebellion. The senator's fury is born of fear. He knows that when an affair of the heart becomes a challenge to the honor of the emperor, everyone associated with it is in mortal danger. Their household, their family, their very lives are now tied to the reckless actions of two lovers who seem to have lost all sense of proportion. In the weeks that follow, it becomes clear that the divorce was only the beginning. The affair escalates from a secret passion into a public challenge. Messalina, as if emboldened by Silius's public declaration, begins to act with a terrifying lack of caution. Stories fly through the city of her lavish gifts to him. He is given a magnificent house on the Forum, its previous owner having been conveniently persuaded to sell. Its rooms are soon filled with priceless heirlooms, antiques, and statues taken directly from the imperial palace, items that belong to the ancestors of Claudius himself. It is a flagrant transfer of imperial property, a symbolic elevation of Silius to a status equal to the emperor's. She appoints his friends to powerful positions. She uses her influence to destroy his enemies, stripping them of their titles and fortunes on trumped-up charges. The Empress and her lover are no longer simply meeting in secret gardens. They are carving out their own parallel court, a government in waiting that operates on her authority and his ambition. You see lesser nobles, trying to curry favour, beginning to perform the morning salutatio, not at the emperor's palace, but at the new domus of Gaius Silius. It's a laughable, pathetic sight to you, these men scurrying after a new source of power, but it is also a deeply unnerving sign of how much the ground is shifting beneath everyone's feet. The secret glances and dropped fans that once seemed so daring now feel like quaint relics of a more innocent time. The lovers have cast off their masks of discretion. When they appear in public now, they barely feign indifference. They ride through the city in the same litter, attend the theatre together, and host decadent parties that last for days. They seem to be living in a bubble of their own creation, a world where the Emperor Claudius is a distant, irrelevant figure, a ghost haunting his own palace. Your own small, secret connection with Lyra feels even more precious in this new, reckless atmosphere. Your quiet moments in the garden, the silent language of a left flower, or a shared glance, are a sanctuary of sanity in a city that seems to be going mad. Your love is about hiding, about protecting one another. Theirs, it seems, is now about challenging the world. One afternoon, Lyra looks at you with worried eyes. The goddess Venus is a patron of lovers, she whispers, quoting a line of poetry. But she is also a goddess of chaos. When love forgets caution, it invites ruin. She is right. The audacity is breathtaking, but it is the audacity of people who believe they are untouchable, or perhaps of people who have run so far down a dangerous path that they can no longer imagine turning back. They are building a new reality for themselves, brick by brick, gift by gift, insult by insult to the emperor, and they are forcing everyone in Rome to choose a side. You realize with a growing dread that they are no longer trying to hide their love. They are trying to build a new world around it. The audacity that had been simmering for months was now boiling over. The city itself seems to be holding its breath. Then comes the news that gives the lovers their chance, the opportunity for their final, most insane act of defiance. The Emperor Claudius is to leave Rome. He is travelling to the nearby port of Ostia for several days to oversee the progress of his grand new harbour project, a duty he takes with the utmost seriousness. With the emperor gone, the Empress Messalina is left as the de facto ruler of the city. To the people of Rome, it is a moment of quiet apprehension. To Messalina and Silius, it is an empty stage on which to perform their masterpiece. On the day of the emperor's departure, an unsettling, carnivalesque atmosphere descends upon the city. It is late autumn, the time of the grape harvest, and Messalina declares a spontaneous public festival in the grounds of the Silius Domus. It is ostensibly a bacchanal, a celebration of the wine god, but everyone understands it is something more. Your patron, Senator Valerius, has forbidden anyone in his household from attending, his face a grim mask of disapproval. He knows, as does everyone, that this is no mere party. It is a line being drawn in the sand, and he intends to remain firmly on the emperor's side of it. You, however, are sent on an errand to a market near the Forum, a task that forces you to pass the very edge of the celebration. The sounds reach you long before you see anything. Loud music from pipes and drums, raucous laughter, and drunken singing. As you draw closer, you see the unbelievable spectacle. The gates to the Silius mansion are thrown wide open. Wine flows from fountains. People, many already deep in their cups, dance wildly in the gardens, their heads crowned with ivy. It is a scene of pure, uninhibited revelry. And then you see the procession at the heart of it all. It is a wedding procession. Your mind struggles to accept what your eyes are seeing. It is Messalina and Gaius Silius. She is dressed as a bride, wearing the flammeum, the traditional flame-coloured veil that covers her head. Her hair is braided in the 6 ceremonial locks of a new wife. Silius is beside her, a toga draped over his tunic, his own head crowned with a wreath of ivy. They look like the god Bacchus and his consort, Ariadne, come to life. They are luminous, beautiful, and completely, terrifyingly mad. They move through the throng of their own party, accepting congratulations from their guests. You watch, frozen in disbelief, as they proceed to a raised platform where a small table has been set. There, in full view of everyone, with scribes and witnesses gathered around, they sign the tabulae nuptiales, the official marriage contracts. The scratching of the stylus on the wax tablets is a sound that should be impossible, yet it is happening. The Empress of Rome is committing bigamy in a public ceremony. She is marrying her lover while her husband, the emperor, is barely a day's journey away. You see a noblewoman you recognize from the senator's dinner parties, a woman of high standing, step forward to act as the pronuba. She solemnly takes the right hand of the bride and the groom and joins them, reciting the ancient sacred words. The act lends a horrifying legitimacy to the proceedings. This is not just a drunken parody. They are following the rituals. They are genuinely, legally, in their own minds, getting married. A man next to you in the watching crowd, a simple merchant by his dress, just shakes his head, muttering, "They have lost their senses. The gods will not stand for this." As the newly wedded couple are toasted by their cheering, drunken supporters, your eyes are drawn to a figure standing in the shadows of a nearby portico, away from the celebration. He is not drinking, not cheering. It is Narcissus, the emperor's chief freedman, his most trusted advisor. He stands perfectly still, his arms folded, his face as cold and impassive as a marble statue. He is simply watching, his sharp eyes missing nothing: the signing of the contract, the joining of the hands, the faces of every single guest who cheers for the new couple. He is a spectre at the feast, a silent, deadly warning. His presence is the ticking clock, the embodiment of the emperor's inevitable return and the terrible reckoning that will follow. You feel a chill run down your spine that has nothing to do with the autumn air. This is the moment everything changes. This is the point of no return. You tear your eyes away from the scene and hurry on your errand, your heart pounding a frantic rhythm against your ribs. The sounds of the wild party follow you, a mad symphony for the end of an era. It was more than a wedding. It was a dare to the gods themselves, and you knew, with a certainty that chilled you to the bone, that the gods would answer. The day after the wedding dawns with a strange and heavy stillness. The wild music has ceased. The drunken revelers have stumbled home, and a tense, hungover silence hangs over Rome. It is the quiet of held breath, the pause before the thunderclap. In the senator's domus, the atmosphere is thick with dread. No one speaks of yesterday's events. The name Messalina is not uttered. Every member of the household, from the senator down to the lowest kitchen slave, goes about their duties with a feigned normality that is more terrifying than any open panic. They are all waiting. You are all waiting. The storm breaks in the afternoon. It begins not with a whisper, but with the sound of running feet in the street outside and the urgent metallic clang of a barred city gate. Then comes a new sound, one that cuts through the daily clamour of the city. The rhythmic, heavy tramp of marching soldiers, not a ceremonial procession, but the purposeful, intimidating sound of the Praetorian Guard moving through the streets on a mission. Shouts echo from the direction of the Forum. A woman screams. The city's nervous system has been struck by lightning. A trusted clerk from a neighbouring house, his face ashen, slips through a side gate into your peristyle garden, seeking refuge and sharing the news in frantic, breathless bursts. The spectre at the feast has finally made his move. Just as you saw him, Narcissus had watched and recorded everything. Then, under the cover of darkness, he had raced his chariot to the port of Ostia. He bypassed the Empress's supporters and went straight to the Emperor, presenting him with the undeniable, insane truth of the wedding. The clerk tells you that Claudius, upon hearing the news, was paralyzed with terror and indecision. He was a scholar, not a soldier, and the sheer scale of the betrayal overwhelmed him. It was Narcissus who seized the moment. He demanded the emperor's signet ring, his seal of authority, and, with the terrified emperor's blessing, effectively took command of the state. He is now acting as the hand of Caesar, and that hand has become a fist. Panic erupts in your household. Senator Valerius, your patron, is a man of immense control, but for the first time, you see a flicker of true fear in his eyes. His wife, Domitia Lepida, is the Empress's cousin. Their house has been a known refuge for her allies. They are implicated. "Bar the doors," the senator commands, his voice sharp and clear. No one enters or leaves. Slaves rush to obey, the heavy sound of wooden beams sliding into iron brackets echoing through the domus. The house, once a place of quiet order, becomes a self-imposed prison. Your new duty is one of destruction. The senator, his face a grim caricature of its usual calm, orders you and another scribe to the library. "Burn it," he says, pointing to a large chest of correspondence. "All of it. Now." You and the other scribe work in a frenzy, feeding scrolls and wax tablets into the hearthfire of the kitchens. The words of poets and philosophers are consumed alongside personal letters and household accounts. You catch glimpses of the handwriting, Domitia's elegant script, Messalina's bolder strokes, Silius's confident hand. The coded messages of love and intrigue that once seemed so romantic now curl and blacken in the flames, each one a potential death sentence. You are erasing history, burning the evidence of a love affair to save your own lives. News continues to filter in, each report more terrifying than the last. Gaius Silius was arrested at his new home, the site of his wedding feast. He did not resist. His closest friends, the guests at the wedding, are being rounded up one by one. The Praetorians are sweeping through the city, and with them come the delatores, the professional informers. These are the jackals of Roman politics, men who profit from the ruin of others by accusing them of treason in exchange for a share of their confiscated property. A new layer of fear descends. Now it is not just your connection to the Empress that is a danger, but any old grudge, any jealous neighbour. You notice with a dark, ironic smile that two kitchen slaves, who have been feuding for months, are now speaking to each other with an exaggerated, trembling courtesy. No one wants to be accused of being a friend of Silius. Amidst the chaos, you think of Lyra. You find her in the now deserted peristyle garden, huddling on a bench. The fear in her eyes mirrors your own. You are both caught in a storm far larger than yourselves, your fates tied to the whims of the powerful people who own this house. There are no words of comfort you can offer, so you simply sit beside her, your presence a small anchor in the maelstrom. The shared danger, the unspoken terror, draws you closer than any whispered poetry ever could. And what of the Empress? Conflicting rumours fly like frightened birds. They say she fled the party and has taken refuge in her beloved gardens of Lucullus, the scene of her first secret meetings with Silius. They say she has taken her children, Octavia and Britannicus, and is trying to reach the emperor in Ostia to plead her case before he returns to the city, but that Narcissus has given orders to block her way. Her entire world, built on audacity and power, is unraveling. The web of intrigue she wove so masterfully has become her own trap. In Rome, you have learned, the journey from the highest peak to the deepest abyss can be completed in a single, terrifying day. The storm passes as quickly as it arrived, leaving behind a chilling silence and a city forever changed. The purge is over. The lists of the proscribed have been fulfilled, and the homes of the condemned stand empty and sealed, their wealth flowing into the imperial treasury or the pockets of the informers. Your household has, by some miracle, survived. Senator Valerius's caution, his immediate and ruthless burning of all evidence, has saved you all. Domitia Lepida's connection to the Empress was judged to be one of familial obligation, not treasonous conspiracy. She is disgraced but alive, a fate many would envy. The domus slowly returns to its routines, but the quiet is different now. It is the quiet of a tomb. You learn of the Empress's final hours not from street gossip, but from the source itself. One night, you are passing the senator's study when you hear the sound of Domitia weeping, her voice broken with a grief so profound it seems to shake the very walls. She is speaking to her husband, recounting the end. You listen, hidden by the shadows as she tells the story. Narcissus, fearing the Empress's legendary power to charm her husband, never allowed her to see Claudius. He sent a tribune and several centurions to the gardens of Lucullus with an unspoken order. Domitia was allowed to be with her cousin at the end. She found Messalina not as a defiant queen, but as a terrified young woman, collapsed on the floor of a pavilion, weeping uncontrollably as her own mother urged her to take a dagger and end her life with a final shred of Roman dignity. But she couldn't. Her courage, which had been so boundless in her life, failed her in the face of death. And so, when the tribune kicked open the door, he found her helpless. He dispatched her with a single brutal sword stroke. The story hangs in the air, a tragedy stripped of all its glamour. The vibrant, laughing woman from the garden, the pious empress from the procession, the reckless bride from the party. They all ended here, as a frightened girl on a cold marble floor. In the days that follow, the state begins its final, cruelest act. The Senate decrees a damnatio memoriae. Her name is to be damned, her memory erased from history. You watch from a distance as work crews use ropes and chisels to pull her statues from their pedestals in the forum. Her name is scraped from public inscriptions. An edict declares that all coins bearing her image must be turned in and melted down. The state is trying to make it so that she never existed at all. But you were there. You saw her. You carry her story inside you, a secret history that can't be erased by any decree. Months pass. The snows of winter blanket Rome, muffling its sounds and washing the city in a clean, cold light. The scandal of Messalina and Silius is already fading into the past, replaced by new intrigues. The court is consumed with the question of who will be the emperor's next wife. The city and the empire moves on with brutal efficiency. In the quiet world after the storm, your own small secret love has had time to put down roots. Your loyalty and discretion during the crisis did not go unnoticed by the senator. One evening, he summons you to his study. He looks at you with his weary, all-seeing eyes and tells you he is grateful. As a reward, he offers you a promotion, a better-paying post in one of his provincial estates. But you find yourself speaking with a boldness you did not know you possessed. You tell him you wish to stay in Rome, and you ask for something else. You ask him to name a price for the handmaiden, Lyra. You wish to purchase her freedom, so that you may marry her. The senator studies you for a long moment, a flicker of something, surprise, respect, in his eyes. He agrees. Your life, which began in this city as a journey into the heart of a grand and dangerous romance, has found its own quiet harbour. Your love story will not be told by historians or carved onto monuments. It will exist in the simple daily acts of a shared life. You and Lyra walk together now, not as master and slave, but as husband and wife, in the same peristyle garden that served as your silent meeting place. The jasmine is dormant, the fountain rimmed with ice, but it is your sanctuary. You look at her and you see a future. Sometimes, in the quiet of the evening, you think of Messalina. Was she a monster, a victim, a political mastermind, or a foolish girl who loved too much? Perhaps she was all of those things. She was a shooting star that burned with a spectacular, terrifying light, and then was gone. Her name has been scraped from the stone, but you know that some stories, once witnessed, can never be truly erased. And so, our journey through the marble halls and secret gardens of ancient Rome comes to a gentle close. The echoes of a great scandal fade into the quiet hum of history, leaving behind only the faintest whisper of a tragic love. You found your own peace in that dangerous world, a quiet affection that blossomed in the shadows of a grander, more perilous romance. Let that feeling of quiet safety envelop you now. Feel the weight of the day lift from your shoulders, replaced by a sense of calm and gentle stillness. The story is over, and all that is left is the soft, steady rhythm of your own breathing. Allow the final images of the winter garden, of a shared, quiet smile, to guide you down into a deep and truly restful sleep. The whispers of history have faded, and only a profound and peaceful silence remains. Sleep now. Sleep well.